we're talking about how incompetent the FBI and our other investigative organizations are, and DEI has a lot to do with it. But they're saying 2024 is the year that DEI died. So let's take a look back, because I have to ask, did we win? We're now in 2025. We're looking back at the year when DEI got absolutely hammered. It was something we talked about on this show, on the PBD podcast. Basically, every show that was in the know on this subject was talking about how much DEI sucks, how much it's ruining the country, and what has happened because of it. But let's check in on what the other side of this thing has to say. Up first, we have an article from CNN that just was published a few days ago. DEI isn't actually dead.
Oh boy.
Rather ominous in the context of what we're discussing here.
Lonely guy walking into Walmart.
To quote from this article here, activists are overstating the surface level changes many companies are making to get rid of the heat, a CNN review of company policies and interviews with consultants and DEI proponents found. DEI, while under harsh scrutiny from critics who say it's, quote, reverse discrimination, is alive and well in corporate America. Basically, the point CNN is rather cynically trying to make with this article is that companies are moving away from DEI branding, but still very much pushing its agenda. In the same way, if you'll think back, what did we talk about before DEI? What was the previous three-letter acronym? ESG.
Well,
It was the environmental, social, and governance that BlackRock was making every corporation they managed adopt. BlackRock moved away from ESG. They said, you know what? It's not going to appear in any of our documentation. We're not going to invest in ESG funding anymore. They still believe in the agenda. They just stopped writing down the letters ESG, and everybody was like, okay, I guess you're off the hook.
Yeah.
So DEI, and CNN admits it as a positive thing, but we recognize it for what it is. DEI is going underground and rebranding. To continue from that article, the most significant change most companies appear to be making is ending participation in the Corporate Equality Index, an annual survey ranking companies according to their LGBTQ policies by the Human Rights Campaign. But that does not necessarily mean it's an end for these programs, and that's likely because DEI policies fundamentally make money. DEI initiatives have been shown to boost profits, reduce employee attrition, and increase employee motivation, according to Boston Consulting Group research based on data from 27,000 employees. McKinsey found that companies with greater diversity on their boards of directors are more likely to outperform financially. Remember that name I just said. Remember McKinsey. Then this is a quote they have from a shareholder activism group.
Can we show what we're
throw this
reading?
last thing up, and last time I'll have to go back to this.
Oh, no, okay, sorry.
boy.
We hear that most companies continue with DEI programs. They are just going to be less vocal about it. They don't want to attract someone like Robbie Starbuck. So if we can go to that next picture that we just saw there, Robbie Starbuck might be the most...
girl?
That's a guy.
Okay.
He might
Is
be
it a guy that used to be a girl, or are we
No.
talking biologic?
He's guy.
fully guy, and actually a pretty awesome guy at that. He is a conservative activist who has been like one of the #1 people fighting DEI this year. Go to the next slide. We'll look at some of the
He's
corporate...
disguised.
Yeah, some of the corporate scalps that Robbie Starbuck claimed in 2024. Through his online activism and threats of boycotts, he got Molson Coors, Walmart, Tractor Supply Co., John Deere, Ford, Lowe's, Harley Davidson, and Jack Daniels
Jack Daniels.
Jack Daniels.
No, he got them all to drop their DEI programs.
Yeah, they rescinded them.
All of them were engaged in some form of DEI activism.
Yay.
He threatened boycotts. He exposed internal documents. He did actually good, solid internet journalism and got all of these major corporations, companies like Walmart, one of the most powerful companies that you could think of.
Universities too.
Yeah.
I know University of Florida rescinded their DEI program. There are a bunch of universities. I don't know if that's exactly correlated to this gentleman, but it was around the same time.
That wasn't Robbie Starbuck, but it was part of the movement
Yeah.
of that people were moving away from DEI.
Yeah.
At the same time, Boeing and Microsoft. I covered both of those at VT.com, actually, that'll come up here in a second. Boeing and Microsoft both backed off DEI in 2024 as well.
Thank God.
Where
The plane stopped breaking.
Yeah, every
Yeah,
single
with the planes, thank God.
every single one of them said, you know what, we're not gonna continue the DEI branding. Microsoft said it's not business critical anymore. They defunded their DEI initiatives. They backed away from it, sometimes in under the threat of boycotts, other times just because it wasn't making financial sense anymore. But before we continue, I want to circle back to the CNN claim on McKinsey. Are you guys familiar with McKinsey and Co.?
Oh, all too much.
Yeah, so I figured Brandon would know. So McKinsey and Co. is to corporate consulting what BlackRock is to corporate asset management. And among other things, they are the ones that helped the Sackler family make OxyContin mainstream. Yep. They're currently in a bunch of lawsuits for that, but they're also huge proponents of DEI. CNN claimed that McKinsey studies of time after time have proven that DEI works, that companies that have DEI programs make more money. The employees are happier. If you can throw up this article I wrote from earlier this year, turns out that's not actually the case. We have, next one. We have a headline on there. McKinsey studies used to push DEI in military and major corporations debunked. So, as I wrote at that point, the results of key studies by corporate consultant McKinsey & Company, which have been used to promote the tenets of diversity, equity, and inclusion in corporations, government departments, and the U.S. military, have been called into question over flaws in their methodology. Basically, an independent panel of professors sat down and tried to recreate the conditions of those studies and found that they could not replicate the results. They found no noticeable difference between the performance of companies with high DEI scores and low DEI scores. And it's certainly not anything attributable to the DEI programs themselves. It seems like the performance was completely based on other factors, as all of us knew the entire time. So what do you think, guys? Do you think DEI is on the ropes after this? Do you think it's rebranding? Is it going underground? Or can we actually call it a win?
Oh, no, it's not even close to it. And I think we knocked them back on their heels a little bit, but it's a giant that's grown over the last 20, 30 years that, we just started to hear about it. But the whole notion of quotas and having to fill a quota for, like, doctors and pilots and police departments, like, anything you need a quota for where you're trying to, like, equally fill, like, race and gender with a certain percentage, that's all garbage. That all ultimately has a bad impact on the quality of that industry. Like, everything, you should basically, like, look at somebody blind from a gender and race standpoint when you're hiring them.
Don't be able to look at the names. That's one thing that BizDoc actually said in one of his case studies on DEI. An easy way to solve all of this is hide the names, so you can't get any implication of, like, race, right?
Yeah.
I can't think of anything more offensive than telling somebody that they are only able to be successful on the merit of these immutable characteristics, like their gender, like their sexuality, like their ethnicity. And that goes both ways, telling people that they will never be successful unless they're able to be put in position through these DEI programs. And likewise, telling people, mostly straight white men, that they're only successful on account of their straight white maleness. I literally can't think of anything more offensive. And I think while the battle was won, the war is not, but we're on our way because we now have the court of public opinion on our side, where through what happened last year, and especially with Kamala being the ultimate DEI candidate, everyone was finally able to see DEI for what it was. So I do believe they're going to still try to pursue it, but it's going to be through more like covert means to try to do so.
Yeah, and look at you nailed it. I mean, Kamala, from when he picked her as vice president, hey, Joe, we did it, Joe. One of the worst just political careers of any guys. I'm talking about anybody, from what she was, from all her entire political career has been complete shit. From the border czar to vice president to try to run for president, blew $1 billion. How much? 1 point some billion dollars. Horrible. And like, just look. Let's look at the results. Look at Karine Jean-Pierre. What the hell is that person? What is she? Just lying all freaking day. She's ignorant as hell. She has no idea what the hell she's ever talking about. But lying, perfect. And you nailed it. Besides not seeing the names, whatever the job is, bring everybody in. You guys, just FYI, I don't give a shit what color you are, how tall you are, if you're a girl, you're gay, whatever. On the count of 3, everybody build this thing. Ready? Go. You are the fastest. You have the job. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit what color you are. But that's what they like. Brad, they like this whole DEI thing. It's separating. And just like the Oscars, Rob, you know this. The Oscars now is they have to have all these. You have to have a person of color that's right leg has to be shorter than the other leg. And one of their eyes has to be lazy. It's like, what the hell? Rob, what do you
Definitely
think?
need a tranny in there.
And to your point, March 15th of 2020, during the Democratic primary debate, then candidate Joe Biden committed to selecting a woman as his vice presidential running mate. So never at any point was it, I want the most qualified person to be my running mate. It's, I need a woman to be my running mate. And we talked about this on the PBD podcast earlier this morning, but the state of New Jersey has removed any type of testing that teachers have to pass in order to be certified by the school boards of New Jersey in order to educate the youth. At what point do we, like, we used to be the gold standard. America was. We set the precedent for everything that other countries wanted to be. Ask PBD. When PBD was living in a German refugee camp in the late 80s, what did he watch? American movies. Rocky IV, translated in German or in Farsi or whatever he was. He talked about wanting to wear blue jeans because Americans were wearing blue jeans and blue jeans were cool. We used to be the gold standard, and we got rid of standards in order to accommodate the lesser subsects of our country, people who are not qualified. And it scares me as a father of two white young males.
Racist.
Exactly. I actually had this conversation with my son the other day. I said, listen, we joked earlier about New Year's resolutions. My New Year's resolution to my son was life won't get better until you make it better. No longer in this country is it enough to just be white or be a man. You actually have to have credentials in order to be successful. And at this point, actually being a white male puts you at a disadvantage.
I hate to break it to you, Rob, but you're probably going to have to trans the 4-year-old.
There's no way that's happening. I better luck trans in the 15-year-olds. He goes to public school. The 5-year-old's homeschooled. But we used to have standards, and we've gotten rid of standards in order to accommodate people. And we need to get back to having standards because standards are what made this country great in the first place.
Think about this. Perfect example. So my cousin, he's in med school now. When he was applying, he had a 4.1 GPA, applied to this school, got rejected. And this girl in his class that he knew, black girl, she gets into that school with a 2.9 because they had to fill the quota.
Like, guess what? And one day, somebody's going to go and see her as a doctor.
Yeah.
I don't want that shit. Bro, let me explain something to you. Oh, my God. I want my pilots, especially when it comes to flying, just old white guy. He could be drinking up there. I don't give a shit. Like, hey, John, drink your ass off. Whatever it takes, because everything's been going fine. We haven't seen the results of that shit yet. Because then, what airline? Was it United? When trying to go DEI for hiring? I think it was so. United.
Yeah. Me and Rob and Kelly were freaking out the other day. We had a female pilot on the way back from Phoenix, and
was she like a LGBTQ and like colored hair?
We just heard her voice over the thing, and Humberto almost got off the plane.
Yeah, he turned around. It was so funny because Humberto was wearing like these, and I hate to say, they were like gay short shorts. Yes. They were like these rainbow-colored shorts that only went up to his thigh, and then all of a sudden he threw his hands up, and he was like, "I can't do this." And I was like, "What? Wear those shorts any longer?" And he goes, "No, a female pilot." I went,
it was fine. She did great.
It was a little bumpy.
Hold on, but be honest. If you walk in there and you see a female in there, your heart goes a little bit faster.
And it's not a sexist thing. My mom texted me yesterday. She flew out of West Palm Beach to go back to New Jersey. I texted her at 1:43 in the afternoon. Have a safe flight. I love you. My mom back. Thanks. Home. Love you too. 2 white pilots older. No DEI hires. I love Spirit. ! So it's not just a man thing. We don't just look at it and go, women aren't qualified to do this job. Women are also looking at this and going, I would prefer and be safer if I knew that 2 qualified candidates, preferably a male, were at the controls of the plane.
But it's not just a shoehorn.
It's
not a white guy.
Because they try to shoehorn it in. Like, so I was arguing with my mom the other day about this. She was getting mad at first when I was saying so. I was like, yeah, I can't believe I got here in one piece. I had a female pilot. She's like, that's a terrible thing to say. And so she starts trying to prove me wrong. She looks up. She's like, oh, I'm like, what? She's like, airline incentivizing $150,000 signing bonus for female pilots applying. I'm like,
sorry, guys. I'm going to go be a pilot.
Yeah.
Kelly, well, guess what? Then start your own airline and call it F It Air. And just have people, I don't give a have Down syndrome. I don't have gay, who do whatever you want, but leave it. Have your own airline to yourself. And which, by the way, you want to talk about DEI and like cornering the market? What is it with gay guys and flight attendants? They took over. Like, I want to know the moment. Like, it's a phenomenon. Like, at what point in history did gay guys go, listen, guys, these people suck. Let's just be 30,000 feet away from them.
It probably has to be after, I think, 2008, because for a period of 3 years leading up to that, Hooters had its own airline.
What?
I don't know if you remember that. Look into it. It is insane.
No way.
Hooters owned and operated an airline where Hooters girls in flight attendant outfits were the ones serving your drinks.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
I was born at the wrong time.
Yeah, they got rid of what could have been the greatest business model of all time.
Damn.
But that's when everything started getting worse. But to Rob's point about, white male airline pilots, it's not just white male, because honestly, if I got onto a plane and saw the pilot who looked just like Rob, I'd be like, well, that's questionable. He might actually be drinking up there. But you want a pilot who looks like Captain Sullenberger.
Yeah. Yes.
Every pilot needs to look like that guy, because that's the kind of image that it tells you, okay, if we hit a flock of birds and have to crash land on the Hudson, everybody's going home with nothing but wet socks. And anything that's not Sullenberger is a reason to be a little bit uncomfortable.
So you mean to tell me then, Connor, if you sat in an airplane and you're just with your wife and your newborn and you guys are just getting cozy, ready to take off,
I would never bring a newborn on a plane.
and you just hear this. Welcome to flight 535. This is your pilot Abdul. What would you do? I mean, that's serious. If he was like, your captain Abdul, the co-pilot is Rob. Like, would you shit in your pants?
Inshallah, we shall land safely.
What'd you say, Rob?
I said it's better than a woman pilot. I'll take Al Qaeda over Alice.
So you would take Abdul.
Wow.
Well, see,
Abdul
okay.
over Alice.
Would you take if you take the Muslim pilot over the Arab pilot over the woman? Like, at least you know that the Arab will hit what he's aiming the plane at. The woman might miss the runway completely.
Oh, God.
We could almost create a power ranking for like safest to least safe.
I'm about to mute all of you.
All right, we're gonna move on to the next story before the girls start getting furious and stuff.
But anyway,
Hey, I want a male pilot too.
Yeah.
Base.
to skip to my last slide. My whole
keeper.
point in doing this segment is we've done victory laps on DEI. We've talked about all the companies that are giving up on it. Beware of the fact that it is not dead. And the people who prioritize this are aggressive. They hate you. They will not stop until they have taken everything from you. So just because we didn't win
The battle.
in 2024, the war is far from over. Keep up the effort. Props to Robbie Starbuck. Props to everybody on this show and the PBD podcast who've been pushing against this stuff just as fiercely. Keep up the good work, because we got a long way to go.
And shout out to male pilots. Keep it going, and to
Yes.
gay flight attendants. Anyway, all right, so if you like this clip, click right here. And if you want to see more like it, click right here. Stay angry, Patriots.